Grand merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre, pour
Dédicace.
In English.
I'll switch to English. Let me first say this to everybody.
Yes.
Salam alaikum. Bonjour. Good morning. To all in the audience, it is really a good book. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for gracing us with a foreword for the book and for being here today. I am very grateful to the Moroccan authorities for your hospitality for our meetings. We all felt for you on September 8th, when late in the evening an earthquake struck. We feel for the families. We know that the solidarity of the Moroccan people is unmatched, from His Majesty to the government to the ordinary citizens. So much has been done to quickly bring the country up and forward. This morning, the Minister and I visited schools in the affected areas. In short 1 month, all kids are back at school. Some moved to schools that have not been affected, some in temporary buildings, some in tents, but all studying. And I can tell you that their smiling faces and their enthusiasm to learn is, to me, the strongest evidence for the bright future of this country. But I would do disservice to the authors if I don't tell you there is a lot of evidence in this book as well. I want to recognize that over the last decades, Morocco has undertaken wide-ranging reforms. And the result is obvious. We have a dynamic economy with a very strong export capacity, vibrant tourism sector, educated youth, and a drive to diversification at par with the ambitions to bring growth even higher. The per capita income in this short period of time since reform started has doubled, real per capita income. So we want to see what next. What have we learned, where we are headed? I want to recognize Minister Ben Moussa, who is one of the authors of the book, and also the minister. He will be on a panel later. And the Center for the New South, our partners, as well as our colleagues at the World Bank and my own team, for bringing something that is not only relevant for Morocco, it is relevant for any country that has the ambition to achieve sustainable, inclusive, dynamic development. I am extremely grateful to the Governor and the Minister for joining me here for a conversation that, knowing them, I would not have a lot of work to do to keep it going on. So let me first turn to the Governor, to the Minister. How would you reflect on the impact of the earthquake? For the Minister, how do you see the recovery adding actually strength to the economy rather than subtracting from it? And then to the Governor, have we calculated the impact on the economy? What is it? People would like to know. Minister.
First, allow me, since it's our first event, to express my thanks for all the solidarity shown after this human tragedy of the earthquake, and for taking this great decision to gather in Marrakech for the annual meetings. Thank you for this. We had the chance, as you saw this morning, to see on the ground what's happening after the earthquake. And under the enlightened leadership of His Majesty the King, there has been a very disciplined organization with all, I would say, the stakeholders in Morocco to relieve and to give assistance to the population. It was priority number 1, 2, and 3. And I think we could deliver, because within 3 or 4 days, we had all the victims, direct victims that were, I would say, all saved, the one who were saved, and our condolences for all the huge losses. But all, I would say, the setup for their safety, for their food, for water, and within a week for schools, and this is very important. So we, under the leadership of His Majesty, we have constant meetings, first to recover for the direct damages, but also to come with a comprehensive, very ambitious plan to also come with solutions with these invisible disparities that were in the region. So the story today is to build back better, as you mentioned, build maybe forward, with a plan of almost $12 billion. We will have a chance to give you some, I would say, insight of what's the plan. But this is the idea, is that when we are facing crisis, we also reinvent ourselves for a better future, especially for the youngest.
Yes, this is so very true. I saw only a glimpse of how the thinking of building forward rather than just restoring what was there. For example, in the schools we visited, the communities around, our rural communities, some are as far as 40 kilometers from the school, and children have to stay somewhere. Now the thinking is, let's build good conditions for children to have housing campus. And so, especially for girls, for boys as well, but for girls, for their families to feel comfortable that they continue their studies. This is so, so important. The best memorial Morocco can build for those who lost their lives is to build better and to build for kids as priority. So congratulations for that. Do we have any sense of the cost of this earthquake, Monsieur le Gouverneur?
Merci bien, Madame la Directrice.
Thank you, Madam Managing Director. Well, of course, very quickly, we have followed what the government has undertaken under the leadership of His Majesty. We have set up an assessment cell, and we have worked with the first data available. There is material damage, 60,000 housings, 1,000 schools, and we also have monuments that were destroyed. And of course, we need to hail the diligence, but also the mastery of what has been done. The helps that were announced for in favor of the victims, but also in terms of housing, as the head of government has mentioned in his speech. But you also mentioned the need to break the isolation of those regions, but also to build the future over the next 5 years. It is a region that is highly tourist-based. 25% of added value for tourism lies here in Marrakesh. they have a role to play, and the fact of maintaining these annual meetings is part of it. But the region is also characterized by agricultural life and mountain life as well. We have compared what happened here in other countries that were struck by earthquakes. And with the assistance of the IMF, we have also reviewed the reports by the World Bank that were produced of late. I cannot give you precise figures, but what we have noted in such circumstances, growth picks up, and in those, as was the case in other countries, each with its specificity, there is a growth recovery. Now, when it comes to macroeconomic balances, the government has announced a 120 billion budget for over the 5 coming years. It's 20% of the GDP. Which is the equivalent of what other countries have done. And the balance of payments and the current accounts will also have some impact on imports, and other components will yield a positive outcome. Of course, we need to wait for the figures to better apprehend the impact, but we know that the impact will not be highly negative, but there will be very positive elements as well. We have the solidarity account. So far we have reached 12 billion dirhams, and we need to applaud this national solidarity effort. And I can assure you that when it comes to external solidarity with the physical persons that have subscribed to this fund, you can't imagine the extent of that solidarity when you negotiate with international organizations like the World Bank and the BAD. Morocco still has some interesting leeway. This is what I wanted to say, Madam Managing Director.
Governor, I very much agree that with good strategy and planning, the recovery can inject additional dynamism in the economy. And I also know that one of the reasons Morocco is handling the impact so well is because over the last decades, the foundation of strong institutions and strong policies has been built. You are one of those who built it, so maybe it would be interesting for the audience, certainly for me, what do you think were the most important steps Morocco has taken so it is in a sound position today?
Écoutez, madame.
Well, let's think first about the 80s earthquake. There was an exchange crisis. We have had to reassess the debt. There was a structural adjustment policy with the World Bank and with you, the IMF. So how did we make it? Of course, the structural reforms, I can't mention all of them. All the people here in this room, they know what has been done, the exchange policy, liberalizing of prices, tax policies, and so on and so forth. But 10 years later, in 1993, in January more precisely, Morocco joined the Article 8 of the IMF, enabling convertibility of current operations. We've been able to pay normally our debts, and during that process, Morocco has never defaulted any time. So That's the actual situation. This has enabled Morocco to drive Morocco towards a growth pathward. And then the new reign started. At that time, the human factor was at the core of any policy. So all the reforms have also been based on that. All structural reforms, the head of government just said it. We can mention lots of them, but this would be a very difficult task to mention all of them. But still, there was this commission, Reconciliation and Equity, that dealt with all the historical facts, the education reform, justice reform, the regionalization reform, tax policies reform. So many things, but always putting the human factor at the core of everything. And we have not forgotten the economic development. There were all those infrastructure policies, the overhaul of tax policies, the charter of investments, the private sector being much more involved. The head of a government talked about green hydrogen. So how did we come to do that? Well, I think, to put it simply, with an enlightened leadership, first and foremost, with the implementation, the orderly implementation of reforms. Not everything is perfect, but they're quite orderly, a very proper follow-up, and a trustworthy relationship with international organizations. This is how we've been able to sign in 2012 the PLL and the flexible credit line later on. So now there are no conditions in 2023. This is what we have been able to do.
And I want to stress that Morocco is, for now, and I hope not for longer, the only country on the African continent that is eligible for flexible credit line. So, bravo. Minister, you often talk about the new generation of reforms, the new development path for Morocco. Can you tell us more about that?
First, we are having this new, I would say, agenda of reform because we have this legacy and strong fundamentals. The choice number one is definitely the social state, because every human being, every Moroccan wants education, health, and jobs. So social state is very important for us through health, education, and social protection. Maybe just some numbers. In the social security, for more than 4 or 5 decades, we will have less than 8 million beneficiaries of this social security. In 2022, we finished the year with almost 22 million and something. Why? Because people before this would see going to the social security is some way of paying an additional tax. But today, they see the real benefit. They can go to the public hospital, to the private hospital, whether they have good or bad revenues and have effective public services. So it's not that they're happy to pay any tax or any fees, but at least we have a real commitment of the population to go from informal sector to the formal sector, because the offer of social protection is very strong. And on education, and because you saw how it is a priority for us also in the management of this crisis, we have a very comprehensive strategy of rebuilding a stronger education. It's, of course, a long journey, and all the countries all over the world are struggling with this type of reform. But we are, I would say, responsible with having very clear KPIs. In the 4 coming years, what we want is to drop by 1/3 the dropout of the students. It's, I would say, we are committed, we are dedicated to this. We also want to double the academic know-how of the student. And we want also that the number of students that benefits also from soft skill, from culture, that give them confidence, openness to the world, we double the figures from 25% to come to 50% in public school. And in public school, we will guarantee that there will be a social equality in our country. To fund for this, we need growth. And we have also a strong agenda and portfolio of economic strategies. You know our strategies in industry, in agriculture, but we also need to have the competitiveness, good competitiveness ecosystem for our industries, from the renewable energies to the logistics, to good financial conditions and capital markets, which allows for a rebound of our economy and attracting more foreign investors. And because I'm sitting with the managing director of IMF, we are very careful, Mrs. MD, about having strong macroeconomic fundamentals. We are using carefully the fiscal rules, and we are also reforming the fiscal laws to have clear, I would say, commitments to come back to strong fundamentals in our macroeconomic, because the idea is never let the crisis stop this dynamic of reform for a better future.
Great. It is wisdom. I hope you would communicate broadly when we are with all the ministers and central bank governors, because indeed, after two unthinkable shocks, the COVID pandemic, the war, the cost of living crisis that came, there has been a lot of pressure on public budgets to spend, to support households and businesses. And now they have to continue to invest in the future and yet bring back buffers, because we don't know when the next shock is going to be, but we know it will happen. So thank you for the message you conveyed here. And since we are in Marrakesh for the meetings, I would be very interested to hear from you on the first day of the meetings. What are your expectations? What are your expectations from the meetings, and what are your expectations from our institutions? Monsieur le Gouverneur, when we finish the week, how would success look like?
Bien. Peut-être vous...
Well, you're asking me a bit too much, I guess, but I'll try to give you an answer. Well, first of all, we have to think about this planet we're living in. There's this sentence from the General Secretary of the United Nations who said, "We have opened the doors of hell." I think that this annual meetings in Marrakesh, you should be able to try to close back those doors of hell. And it shouldn't be a matter of financing, but only a question of strength, because we're so sorry that humans be fighting for their survivals and finding finance as an obstacle. And this is where we really need your support. We know everything you have done during the pandemic in terms of having equitable access to vaccines. We know all the things you've done in the G20 for the debt of the most vulnerable countries. We know that we've been doing in so many fields, but today the stakes are high. It's about our own existence, asking a bit more from you, General Manager. Now that we are trying to solve the problem of the Earth, we have also to deal with humans' problems. We have to eliminate poverty, eliminate illiteracy. we have to eliminate the state's sovereign egoism, this geopolitical fragmentation that is gaining grounds day after day, this multilateralism that has brought about some positive results have left so many people behind. Multilateralism with the goodwill of everyone requires more sound public policies, but also national cooperation that is able to bring back trust for all those developing countries in particular, and more particularly to those young people that we are so much in need. Thank you.
I hope that many are listening to you, because yes, indeed, the stakes are high. The room for error does not exist. It is about the future of humanity. If we miss to act together during this decade, the price our children, our grandchildren would pay is unbearable. I tell people, when you're faced with a decision that concerns the well-being of future generations, and these are the decisions we're making today, please look at the picture of your family, of your kids, of your grandkids. This is what I do. I look at the picture of my grandchildren, and then I know what to do. This is a compass. Madam Minister.
Well, I cannot agree more of what you both said about the annual meeting. I'm comfortable and quite sure that under your leadership and one of the president of the World Bank, you will bring together in a, I would say, a responsible conversation the financial world to come with new solutions and peaceful messages. I'm just seizing the occasion just to say that under the enlightened vision of His Majesty, we consider ourselves in Morocco as a honest broker for African continent. It's been 15 years that you haven't been back in Africa, so welcome back to Africa. But it is an important moment to maybe have a look to the needs for the specific needs for the continent. His Excellency, the governor, was saying that Morocco has never defaulted and will never, inshallah, but many other countries in Africa didn't default either. But they are defaulting the future of their youth. They are defaulting making the proper infrastructure investment. So when we are having the conversation of how much financial resources are available, and we need to choose between food security, debt, climate finance, economic, I would say, investment, we need all of them. And this is our, I would say, pledge together, hopefully, to say that the emerging countries need all this, and the future of the growth of the world needs also the growth of Africa.
Yes. I embrace all you have said. We come here for the meetings with focus first, what are the right policies at this time of uncertainty, how we can collectively see better through the fog in front of us. Second, how we can mobilize more resources for vulnerable emerging market economies, for low-income countries. Third, how we can address with higher impact the issue of debt. And last but not least, how can we nurture the solidarity among nations, without which we simply cannot deal with the challenges ahead of us. You, Morocco, you are offering us a lesson of solidarity. You are also amplifying the voice of the continent. And I can say, in my heart of heart, a prosperous 21st century is only possible with prosperous Africa. Here are the young people. In the north is the capital, with aging populations. If we built a bridge for capital to travel where it would make a difference, Africa would do well, the world would do well.